Welcome to Ziath's Applications Laboratories here in Cambridge. With me today is Benn, Managing Director of Ziath, and we're going to talk about the future of digital sample management. Neil, before we start, just give us a little bit of background about how you started in the industry and some of the challenges you faced.
Okay, so my first degree was in biology, and straight after I left that I worked at sample management at Glaxo in Stevenage, UK. And essentially the sample management industry was very nascent then. After having worked in that, seen the sample management industry grow, worked a bit in laboratory automation, then moved on to Cambridge Antibody Technology, which is now part of AstraZeneca, and also did a computing degree at the same time, and then used that computing knowledge with the application knowledge of sample management and laboratory automation to work there, then worked for a small period in a German startup company, and then for the Max Planck Institute in Germany. And then around about 20 years ago, started up Ziath Limited with a colleague of mine called Tim. And that company has grown from an initial startup using bedrooms and kitchens up to a major international business as it is now.
Well, that's fantastic. But I guess back in the day when you were working before you started Ziath, sample management was in its infancy. What was it like?
At the very first, it was unrecognisable to what it is now. Racks were stored with 96 tubes in them. The tubes were unlabelled. We hand wrote on the side of the racks. The data was stored in Microsoft Word, and the samples were actually physically stored in a meat freezer in the car park.
Wow, that really is primitive. So did the advent of 2D barcodes really affect that?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that happened is we put a 1D barcode on the side, which is a bit backwards for our industry. I mean, they've been used in supermarkets commonly before then. And then that was okay, but if you drop the rack on the floor, you lose all 96 tubes. There's no way of identifying them.
Right.
So the 2D barcodes on the tubes basically meant that you could identify the tubes no matter where they were, in the rack, on the floor, in transit, and it made things much easier to use. However, at the start, the machines to read them were difficult to use, expensive and complicated, which is something that we identified as a company at Ziath.
And that's where you started Ziath, to make a better reader effectively?
Yeah, well essentially, myself and Tim said these tubes are made to be read. So why are these readers so hard to use? I thought it can't be that hard. It was. It took a couple of years just of working in evenings and weekends, constantly trying to develop the algorithm systems that would make a reliable and reproducible 2D barcode rack reader.
And once you got the readers in position, did you find that scientists responded well to these new developments?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know much about marketing or commercial things, so we were quite naive in what was actually important for that. But once we found out we got it in front of the people and we put the thing on and pushed go and it went doof and worked immediately, they were completely amazed and thought it was probably magic. It wasn't. It was 2 years of basically evenings and weekends.
Fantastic. And this would have been with flatbed scanners initially?
Yeah, so anyone aged under about 30 might not know this, but back in the day you used to take photos and then if you wanted them on a computer, you'd have them developed on film and then scan them on a flatbed scanner. And so essentially we use exactly the same technology to scan the bottom of the rack. It gives you a good picture, but it can be a bit slow.
Right, yep. So what was the next development from there?
So essentially we started on flatbed scanners and then we thought to ourselves, well, let's have a go at making camera scanners. So a lot of people start trying to use cameras, expensive cameras. You think, the more expensive it is, the better it is. So we started looking at expensive cameras and there were some others on the market. And the accepted wisdom was that camera-based scanners that just go like that, take a picture, don't work. So we did some research and discovered that in fact you can get it, you just change a different type of camera. In actual fact, it's quite similar to the camera that's in the back of your phone. And then we used that system to start making our first camera-based scanner, and we launched the Express scanner around about 14 years ago.
Okay, so from that period, the camera-based readers have become accepted in the market, and today they appear to be the norm.
They are. Some people still aren't making camera-based scanners. You can still buy the flatbed scanners. We've stopped doing that at Ziath. We've cracked how to get the camera scanners working. They're better, they're more reliable, and in essence, they're cheaper to make. The reason I said people under 30 is you don't scan photos anymore. So in actual fact, the flatbed scanner technology is frozen because it's so niche, you actually don't need it anymore.
Right, absolutely. And during that development period, how important was the development of the software to drive the scanners?
It's vitally important. We often say that there's two ways in which you can make a scanner. You can either get a highly expensive camera, have a big system, and the software's kind of okay, but the images are brilliant, so you don't need it. Or you can do what we've done, where you get an okay camera and the device is small, it's compact, but then you need much better quality software to read, analyse and diagnose the barcodes. We went the second way. To give you an example, up until recently, we had 4 computer programmers working in the company and only 1 hardware person. So that's how important the software used to be. It still is.
And going into the future, do you think developments in the software will continue to drive the way that the sample management is carried out?
Yeah, but also now we are recruiting electrical and mechanical engineers. We're also developing the hardware to be a lot better, to make it more portable, to make it more compact and to make it more reliable. But that software is still going to be the key that drives to understand, analyse and process the images from the camera.
But in the hardware field, I guess you can exploit some of the newer technologies like near field and Wi-Fi connection and storing directly to networks?
Yes, exactly. I mean, at the moment we're working on having a portable device using a special computer chip called an FPGA. So that will allow us to have the decoding algorithms in a highly specialised, processed, super fast chip that's low power. That's going to enable us to have portable, more usable scanners that you can take around the building with you, take it to your liquid nitrogen tank or your -80 freezer. And then also with near field, that's commonly known as RFID, we're investigating to see how that could be used within the applications. And as I said, we've currently got a team of electrical engineers and mechanical engineers working on leveraging both the software and also the hardware to make a better product.
So how will the development of mobile phone technology impact the handling of the data from the readers?
Interestingly, we've actually got applications that allow you to control our scanners from your phones, but it's not been that well uptaken. And I think part of the reason why is a lot of people actually in charge are like you and me. We didn't grow up with phones.
Right, we're not digital natives, unlike our millennial colleagues.
Exactly. So essentially, with companies implementing things like BYOD, which is called Bring Your Own Device, rather than IT controlling stuff, you can use your own phone and the company gives you a grant towards that. People are becoming more open in their ecosystems, which will allow you to use your phone to scan things, process them and have them accessed. We've got some people, for example, who are running our scanners with tablets only. And they said, well, I don't need to have a computer clumping up the desk. If I can run it with a tablet, it's great, and that's what we enable. In addition as well, with having our portable scanners in there, then we've got the ability to actually just do away with the computer, do away with the phone, and you can just sit with the device on the table. At the end of the day, it's just a barcode scanner, and all you want to do is put it on and push go. And that's how we started Ziath, and that's how we continue it.
Well, that's great, and obviously we look forward to seeing the portable scanner that you can take down to the freezer in the near future. But just looking into the future a bit further, are there other areas apart from compound management and biobanking where Ziath has built a fantastic reputation, where you could see this technology being applied?
Well, one of the obvious things that happened was the advent of medical diagnostics during COVID.
Right.
Medical diagnostics has been woefully underinvested for years and years and years, which is part of the reason why we had so many issues when it came in. So medical diagnostics was invested in heavily, and then we've been part of that crucial effort, delivering hundreds upon hundreds of scanners to the World Health Organization, who distributes them throughout the world. That's going to continue, and medical diagnostics really needs to keep up that level of investment. So if anything like COVID ever happens again, we can test like that. Moving on from that, there's other industries coming in. The US cannabis market is a very interesting one because it's a highly regulated market with a bunch of very well written laws. So essentially, as you have to test a product, the more product goes out, then the better you are if you can track and process those samples. We're seeing that. And there's other applications in life science, meat industry. There's a lot of companies that are focused on trying to grow meat themselves rather than
so-called artificial meat.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than killing the animal, you can just grow it from scratch. That's a very big industry that's coming into the area. But there's so many. There's medical genetic testing to determine what's happening. That's seen a very big growth in area in there. And then countries that are heavily invested in forensics, Australia being one, for example, are using a lot of 2D barcode scanning in forensics. And as the rest of the world catches up to countries like Australia, then you'll see the forensics will also be tracking the samples a lot quicker.
Well, that's great, and it sounds like there's plenty of opportunity for the development of the 2D reader side of the business. But I understand you also want to develop into slightly different instrumentation for the bench.
Yes, so essentially one thing we wanted to do is make sure we're not a one-trick pony, just have tablet scanners. So the first thing we built was the Mohawk, which you can use to select tubes. Put the rack on it, pop the tubes up, you take them out and move them on as you go. We kind of did that as an experimentation and didn't really think about the commercial aspects of it, but it's been very successful and that's encouraged us to move forward. So we're going to look into what other areas we can handle for tube handling. Remember earlier I said I used to work in automation, to see whether or not we can bring some automation in to handle tubes.
And I guess that's an obvious adjunct then, because if you've handled the tubes, you can then read the new tube racks on the readers, and there's quite a lot of synergy between the two product lines.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to stick within the sample management field. It's not like we're going to make things to image gels or anything like that.
Right.
We're going to stay in that same area because it's what we're known for and it's what we know well.
And what sort of mix of people work for Ziath?
We're quite a diverse group. In fact, the only people that look like you and me is you and me in the company. We're a very diverse group. We've got a lot of women in working in R&D department. We've got the youngest person is age 19, the oldest person is 60. We've got people from around about 8-9 different countries working in the UK, and obviously having international offices means we have to learn and understand the cultures around the world for that, which is important because we sell internationally. We've sold to pretty much every single one of the G20 countries that's out there, and many other countries as well. The only continent we haven't sold on is Antarctica and the Arctic. So, you know, if anyone's out there wants to buy it, then please let us know. But I can't see penguins needing barcodes.
Maybe the British Antarctic Survey for keeping core samples.
That could be an interesting one. But no, we've always encouraged and enjoyed the fact that we're a very diverse organisation.
And obviously this year has been a very big year for Ziath in a very particular way.
We won a Queen's Award for Enterprise, which is something that's very good to get notified and announced for it. The thing I like about that, it's not an award you pay for, it's not an award that's awarded because you know somebody. It's a very rigorous process to determine who does and doesn't get it and who is valid to get it. So we're very pleased and very honoured to have received that award.
Well, congratulations on achieving that. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us today. And if you want to ask any questions, you can leave them after the video in the comments section and we'll try and get back to you. If you want to know more about Ziath, then please go to www.ziath.com.